You are born into a world built on promises. They hand them to you before you even know what language is. Be good, tell the truth, stay loyal, keep your word. Fairy tales frame betrayal as monstrous. The prince who strays is punished. The villainess who deceives is cursed. Loyalty is painted as golden, sacred, the invisible thread that holds the world together. Even your parents, flawed and weary, still insist on the same lesson. Be honest, be faithful, be good. And for a time, you accept it. But the human animal in you never really bows to fairy tales. Inside your ribs, there's a restless creature pacing back and forth. It wants to see what happens if you bend the rules, if you peek behind the curtain, if you push your luck a little further than you should. That pacing never stops. It only gets quieter until the right moment. Childhood rehearsal. Cheating begins long before romance. You're 7 years old, crouched over a board game with your cousins. The dice slip from your hand, land badly, and without thinking, you push your piece an extra square forward. Nobody notices. The jolt that runs through your body isn't pride. It's something stranger. It's the thrill of getting away with it. Later, you sneak a look at the answer key in the back of the math book. Copy a line or two of homework from a friend. Hide the fact that you peeked at cards in your hand. It isn't about winning. It isn't about candy or grades or bragging rights. It's about the secret itself. The strange electricity of bending reality in your favor while nobody else sees it. That electricity never quite leaves you. It becomes a ghost you carry into adulthood. And in small, almost invisible ways, you practice. Lying about brushing your teeth. Pretending you finished your vegetables. Making up excuses to your teacher. Each tiny infraction is rehearsal for something bigger. A training ground. And perhaps most dangerously, no one punishes you. Not really. You get away with it. And the lesson carved quietly into your bones is this: rules aren't walls, they're doors, and doors can be opened. The first loves. Then comes romance, messy and overwhelming. You're young and convinced this feeling, this intoxicating rush, will last forever. You write down your devotion in messy handwriting, scribble hearts in the margins, whisper promises in the dark like they're carved in stone. You mean every word, at least you think you do. But promises are light. They float easily off the tongue, but they weigh heavily when tied around the body. One day, temptation wanders into your life. Not dressed as evil, not even dressed as danger. Temptation comes dressed as possibility. A smile that lingers too long across a classroom. A voice that makes you laugh harder than you thought possible. A brush of a hand that feels like it belongs to another lifetime. And suddenly, the thread of loyalty you were told to protect feels like a leash. You don't cut it. Not yet. You just test its stretch. You start small. A joke that feels too intimate. A late-night conversation that lasts a little too long. A message that you hide. Not because it's damning, but because it feels delicious to hide it. You tell yourself it's harmless. Just curiosity. Just fun. But you already know, curiosity is never harmless. It is the seed of fracture. You're not just flirting with a person. You're flirting with the possibility of a different version of yourself. One less bored, less tired, less ordinary. The slippery edge. The cracks spread quickly. One drink becomes two. Two become four. The pauses between texts become shorter. The tension builds with each innocent interaction until you feel like you're carrying dynamite in your chest. And then, one night, the line snaps. A kiss that shouldn't have happened. A room that suddenly feels too private. Hands that linger too long. You tell yourself it's just this once, that you'll never do it again. But you've already crossed the invisible boundary. The forbidden has been tasted, and nothing is more addictive than that. Cheating isn't just about lust. It isn't even just about rebellion. It's about escape. The frantic attempt to break free of suffocation. The clawing desperation to prove you're still alive, still wanted, still able to feel something that routine has stolen from you. It isn't about them. It was never about them. It's about you. Always about you. And after that first taste, you can never unknow it. The world feels different. Smaller cages, larger hungers, the double life. Now the act is done, you convince yourself you can manage it. You tell yourself you're clever enough to live 2 lives without anyone suspecting. One official, one secret, one respectable, one trembling. But duplicity is not mastery. It is erosion. Your phone becomes a landmine. Every notification feels like potential detonation. You learn the choreography of erasure, delete, hide, excuse, perform. At first you feel powerful. The thrill of the secret becomes its own drug. The stolen hours feed you. The 2 identities make you feel larger, as though you're more than one person, as though you've expanded beyond the small box of predictability. But the expansion doesn't last, because every lie carries weight. Every secret drags at your insides. You've given yourself 2 lives, yes, but at the cost of being split in half. Duplicity doesn't make you more. It makes you less. And still you tell yourself, I can handle it. I'm careful. I'm different. You cling to the illusion that you're in control, that you're navigating the chaos instead of being swallowed by it. But deep down, the truth whispers, you're not managing anything. You're being eaten alive. 2 selves. One version of you clings to safety, the partner who waits at home, the warmth of belonging, the illusion of stability. The other version craves chaos, the validation of someone new, the intoxicating attention, the sense of being alive again. And you tell yourself you love both, that somehow it's possible to be whole while divided. But you don't. The truth you bury is this: cheating is not only betrayal of the other, it is betrayal of yourself. You have divided your being into incompatible halves, and every day the crack widens. Faithfulness feels like suffocation, freedom feels like guilt, and you float between the 2, hollow, unsatisfied, unable to stop. You aren't 2 people, you are one person, fractured, and the fracture itself is what consumes you. The weight of lies. Nights are the worst. You lie awake rehearsing alibis no one has asked for. You imagine questions your partner might one day pose and practice the answers in your head. You polish excuses like weapons, ready to draw them in an instant. And then, in the light of morning, you catch yourself laughing with them. Your partner, your anchor, and feel dread coil in your stomach. Because they trust you, and their trust feels unbearable. Not because they suspect, but because they don't. The purity of their faith in you becomes a mirror too sharp to look at. You want to confess, but you don't. You want to stop, but you won't. Instead, you orbit endlessly around your own contradictions, unable to land. The longer it goes on, the heavier it grows. The air between you and your partner thickens. Conversations feel brittle. Their gaze lingers on you longer than it used to, as if sensing something off. You smile harder, talk louder, try to disguise the rot. But inside you already know. You didn't build freedom, you built another cage. And this time, you're the one who locked the door. At first you think you can carry the weight. You convince yourself you're clever enough, disciplined enough, detached enough. You say it's under control, but control is an illusion, and illusions always break. The cracks in the wall. It starts small, an offhand comment that lands wrong, a missed detail in your story, a glance that lingers a second too long. You see suspicion flicker in your partner's eyes like a candle threatening to ignite. They don't accuse you, they don't storm out. But you feel it, the air growing thick, the silence heavy with things unsaid. Your own paranoia finishes the job for them. You replay every interaction, every slip, every word that might have sounded strange. You examine your own text messages like they're crime scene evidence. It isn't that you've been caught. It's that you've caught yourself. And suddenly, the double life doesn't thrill anymore. It corrodes the guilt parasite. Cheating is not one act. It is 1,000 smaller ones. Every lie you tell digs roots into you. Every secret you keep sprouts branches. Slowly, guilt grows like ivy, creeping through the cracks of your identity, winding itself around your ribs, squeezing tighter with each passing day. You notice it in your body first, the shallow breath, the racing pulse, the tightness in your throat when your partner says, "I love you." You notice it in your thoughts next, the intrusive voice that whispers, "They deserve better." They'd leave if they knew. You're not who they think you are. And worst of all, you notice it in your joy. Moments that used to feel effortless now taste like ash. A dinner together, a kiss goodnight, even shared laughter, all poisoned by the knowledge that you're holding back the full truth. The betrayal lives not only in the act itself, but in the daily choice to maintain it. The fear of exposure. You begin to live with constant dread. The phone buzzes and your stomach flips. A stranger looks at you too long and you wonder if they know. Your partner picks up your phone and your chest tightens as if you've been stabbed. Fear becomes the background music of your life. You tell yourself it's the price of freedom. But deep down, you recognize it for what it is, chains. And here's the cruelest irony. Every attempt you make to keep your world from collapsing only accelerates its collapse. The more careful you are, the more obvious the effort becomes. The more you try to appear relaxed, the more forced your smile looks. Suspicion doesn't need proof. Suspicion needs patterns, and you're full of them. The collapse. There are only two endings to this kind of story: discovery or confession. Sometimes it comes suddenly, an unlocked phone, a message that slips through unedited, a friend who says too much. Sometimes it comes slowly, an accumulation of cracks until the whole facade finally caves. And when it does, the world does not explode in flames. It unravels quietly. Your partner's face shifts, their voice breaks, their trust shatters in an instant. And the worst part is not the anger, not the tears, not even the accusations. The worst part is the silence, the heavy silence of someone looking at you like they don't know who you are anymore. You try to explain. You trip over excuses, half-truths, apologies. But every word makes the wound deeper. Because betrayal is not just about what you did. It's about the reality you created that never really existed. You weren't just unfaithful. You built a world where they believed they were safe, and then you pulled it out from under them. That's the cruelty of cheating. It isn't the act itself, but the demolition of trust. The aftermath. When the dust settles, you tell yourself you'll never do it again. That the guilt is enough, that the lesson has been burned into you. But here's the darkness no one admits. Cheating is less about circumstances and more about psychology. The need doesn't vanish with the ending of a relationship. It lingers, waiting for the next moment of boredom, suffocation, or desperation. Unless confronted, it repeats. And repetition is its own punishment. The mirror. At some point, you are forced to look at yourself. Not the person you pretend to be, not the character you perform for your partner, but the raw, unpolished self that lingers beneath all the masks. And what you see is uncomfortable. You see a coward, not because you strayed, but because you couldn't face the emptiness inside you without dragging someone else into it. You see an addict, not addicted to sex or romance, but to escape, to novelty, to the sweet, poisonous thrill of secrecy. And most of all, you see a liar, not only to others, but to yourself. Because every justification, "I still love them," "It didn't mean anything, I deserve this," was a story you told to avoid the deeper truth. You cheated because you were afraid. Afraid of being ordinary, afraid of sitting in stillness, afraid of looking too long at the mirror of your own dissatisfaction. The decline. Cheating promises freedom, but delivers decay. At first you feel larger, 2 lives, 2 loves, 2 worlds. But over time, you don't become bigger. You become smaller, splintered, eroded, and eventually the decay spreads. Relationships fracture, friendships become strained, trust corrodes, and worst of all, your own sense of self weakens until you don't even know what's real anymore. Because how do you trust yourself when you know what you're capable of hiding? The decline isn't loud. It's slow. A rotting of the beams inside your house until the whole structure creaks under its own weight. And when it finally collapses, you're left standing in the rubble, wondering if any of it was ever solid to begin with. The end. Maybe you're left alone. Maybe you're forgiven but never trusted again. Maybe you continue the cycle until you no longer recognize the faces of those you've betrayed. Either way, the ending is the same. You are haunted, not by what you lost, but by what you became in the process of losing it. Because once you cheat, you are never again innocent. You are forever aware of your capacity for betrayal. That knowledge doesn't vanish. It stays lodged under your skin like a shard of glass. You may learn to live with it. You may even grow from it. But you will never be untouched by it. Reflection, and yet, there is a strange kind of mercy here. Because if you can bear to look honestly at the psychology of cheating, not the excuses, not the justifications, but the raw, ugly truth, you are forced to confront the deepest parts of yourself. You are forced to admit that loyalty isn't natural. It's chosen. That desire doesn't end when commitment begins. That escape is always tempting, but it never delivers what it promises. You are forced to grow. Perhaps you fail again. Perhaps you stumble. But once you've seen the machinery, the restless hunger, the thrill of secrecy, the cowardice of avoidance, you can no longer pretend you are pure instinct. You have to decide who you will be over and over again. And maybe that's the strange, painful gift of it all. Cheating exposes you, not only to others, but to yourself. It shows you the fracture lines you tried to ignore, the loneliness you tried to mask, the hunger you tried to outrun. And if you're willing, you can step into that wreckage and build something truer. Not cleaner, not holier, but honest. Because in the end, that's what betrayal teaches. Loyalty is not the absence of temptation. It is the presence of choice.